On today's episode, we'll talk about the operator as a storyteller, remembering where you came from, the fall guy, Beetlejuice, and of course, making homemade squibs from rocket launchers as a teenager. Just a little bit of business before we start. There may be a curse word here or there in this episode, so please listen responsibly. As always, our website, theop.io, is up and chock full of tips, tricks, and gooey operator goodness. Make sure to check out The Breakdown, where the best operators in the biz explain shots they have done, The Musings, where we discuss everything from quick tips to larger concepts of storytelling, the answers, the images, and so much more. This episode is brought to you by the Folex Max. So you want to practice your handheld, Steadicam, or even on the wheels, but you don't have a full-size camera to use? Well, fear not. The Folex Max is here. It allows you to attach your DSLR or other lightweight camera and distribute that weight in a multitude of ways. Now you can practice with a camera cage that feels the same as just about any size professional camera out there. For more information, check out folexmax.com. And as an added bonus to listeners, mention this podcast and you'll receive $100 off on your order. That's FAUXLEXMAX.com. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, please follow us, write a review, share us with your parents, and talk us up around the water cooler with your friends. So grab a beverage, sit back, and enjoy the op. Thanks for listening.
Live it up, nice and quiet, and let's roll.
Rolling. Victor 30 Echo, take 2.
Hey, Mark.
And camera set.
Background.
And action.
Hello and welcome back to the Op Podcast, the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I'm Dave Comites, your host, and I'm coming to you over the internet today with a guest in California, Mr. BJ McDonnell, who is a camera operator, Steadicam operator, director. He has over 227 credits on his IMDb, which is just like wild. Some, but not all by any means, of the things that he has done. Springsteen, Deliver Me From Nowhere, The Naked Gun, Beetlejuice, The Fall Guy, American Horror Story, Ballers. In 2008, he won a Telly Award for a Lockheed Martin military commercial. And in 2013, a movie he directed, Hatchet 3, was nominated as Best Film in a jury prize for a festival that he can't recall which one it was from. So I think that's
how much I pay attention.
That's great. Hey, man,
cool.
Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It's been a long time. We talked about doing this, and now I'm really excited that we actually are doing it. So
I think I contacted you like a year and a half ago or something like that, which shows you my life. And I was trying to think about it. Have you and I ever actually met?
You and I met, and I want to say, and maybe this is wrong, but I swear to God, I think I met you when I was just getting into the Steadicam world on Fastlane, like this TV show where I was a grip. Did you come and day play on that?
Fastlane, dude, that was McGee's show?
Yes. And I was transitioning into being an operator, but I was, when I got into this business, I started out as a grip, and I think that you and I actually talked. Yeah. I mean, dude, it just shows like, I hope no one goes to IMDb and goes, when was Fastlane? It makes me and you look like the oldest turds on the planet. But hey, here we are.
Totally, everybody knows I am. That's funny. Oh, well, I'm sure. Well, look, chances are if you were getting into Steadicam and I was there, you probably came up and talked to me. So hopefully I wasn't an ass. But
no, you were super cool. It was like
I used to date play on that.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
Was that. I haven't thought about that show in a long time. Actually, I will tell you there was one thing about that show that I do remember, and I don't remember who the director was, but we were like out in Malibu Beach or one of those beaches where they always shot stuff, and there were these guys, two guys having a conversation sitting around a fire, and I was B camera, Steadicam, or maybe I was just in for a day playing. I don't remember what, and they didn't have any, the A camera was doing a shot and the director went, just do whatever you want. And I had a longer lens on. So I just looked at the AC and I said, all right, so here's the deal. Like I'm going to start on him and then we're going to kind of move the dolly and wrap around to him, but then we'll come back to this guy, and like sort of made up a little thing. And I remember the director, and it worked. It wasn't perfect. I remember the director came up to me afterwards and went, that was really good. And I went, oh, okay, thanks. And he said, but the interesting thing is, you weren't always looking at the people who were talking. Some of the times you were looking at the other guy. And I'm like, I didn't say it, but I'm thinking like, yeah, that's kind of storytelling there, because it's not about the, and I was just like, well, I'll do whatever I do. But
I think that's a telltale thing. And like, no offense to TV directors, but some of the TV directors realize they feel like you always have to be on the person who's talking.
That's
which
exactly
in my
right.
opinion, it's sometimes it's more interesting to see the other person's reaction while while the main actor's talking. I think, and I love that kind of stuff, but
Well, yeah,
it's a
it's
difference.
also one of those things like the story's not always about the person talking. Sometimes it's actually almost always, completely not. But anyway, that that
100%.
was my memory of it. But
Yeah.
well, that's cool. That's a blast from the past right there. So tell me,
Yep.
how'd you get into the business, and how'd you get to where you are?
I've always weirdly, I mean, how far back do you want to go to, like, inspirations, or like, what are you thinking?
Go for inspirations. I'm always interested in that. Yeah.
Long story short, my grandfather was an actor in Hollywood. So
No way.
as a kid, I used to come out to LA and stay with my grandparents, and he would take me to film sets, and he was kind of like starting to slow down when I was a young kid and all that. So and he bought me like a video camera back in the day. Like, me and my buddies growing up would like make these stupid action films I grew up in Florida.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so we'd always make these action films or like these horror movies with video cameras, and he was basically the inspiration. And I got into a punk band because I wanted to be a punk rock, like, I wanted that to be my career, and I did that for about 7 to 8 years, and we were doing great, but we were too young to actually, treat it like a business. It's like when it became unfun. It wasn't, the telltale band thing. Oh, so and so got pissed off in Texas and punched the other guitar player in the head, and we all drove home like on tour. It was those kind of things that happened. Dude, I have so many stories about that. I could go on a whole podcast about that.
But so you were a legitimate band, it sounds like.
I was. Yeah, no, we were on a record label, and we were touring, and it was great. But
what was the name of the band?
It was called Lick. It's a horrible name, but it was.
Right.
We did stuff on Lookout Records. We did stuff on Off Time Records, One Foot Records. We toured around the U.S. a bunch, Canada. It was great, but it was, that was like right out of high school, and so when that ended, I decided, you know what? I love making movies. Let me go see if I can actually try to do this and actually make a career out of it.
Mm-hmm.
So my grandmother, she lived out here. So I left Florida, came out here, went to Los Angeles City College, got a degree in cinema, which I don't even know where that is anymore. I couldn't tell you where my degree is. I have a college degree. Nobody asked me for that degree. But,
yeah.
I did that. And then my buddy, Jason Smith, that weirdly enough, I grew up with back in Florida, he married a wardrobe girl, and he became a grip, and they moved to LA. And at the same time, he goes, well, let me get you in the business. And I ended up getting into business as a grip. And I gripped for a little while, and then I fell in love with the Steadicam because, weirdly enough, I was so obsessed with the movie Aliens and Vasquez and that whole thing. I thought that was so rad.
That's great.
And seeing that, not only just being a young kid making movies and trying to tell stories, but also falling in love with the things of like, Vasquez and her, and like seeing that, I was like, wait a minute, I can run around like Vasquez and Aliens with this cool rig on, but make cool shots. And I just fell in love with the art of it. I dolly gripped for a little while. I loved working with the operators. And that was my path. And I said, you know what? Like I as a grip, I loved what I did as a grip, and it taught me a lot of things, a lot of life lessons, a lot of like measuring and cutting and things that I didn't know growing up in Florida, because I was like a complete BMX surf bum. It taught me all sorts of great stuff. And, and then I just didn't feel like when I see the things that I worked on, I was like, yeah, I set some flags, or I pushed the dolly and I boomed up, and like, I wanted to tell the story. I wanted to be the guy behind the camera.
That's great.
And that's how it became. I went and took the the Steadicam course before Tiffany even had owned, I think they just bought the Steadicam patent. And
you remember who taught the course?
Jeff Haley was one of my teachers. It was one of his first time teaching. It was also Jerry Hallway, obviously. Oh God, who else was there? Oh man, I forgot there was a female op, and she was great, and I can't remember who she was. I can't remember her name, but she was awesome. Lori Hable.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, I believe that was who it was.
Huh?
And yeah, there was a couple other guys, but that was it. And like, it was one of those things where you go to the course and you put the rig on for the first time and you go, yeah, this looked awesome, but Jesus, this thing's heavy. And I don't know if this thing's going to be the right career path, but it's one of those things. Even now, it's like, when I'm off work for, a little amount of time, it still feels like the same time when I go to, like, you put the rig on, it takes about a week to get your body back into it again. You know what I mean?
Right,
and then you're fine for the rest of the shoot. But it's like, it just takes time to acclimate. That's the story in short. And also I moved to LA to be a director. I additionally wanted to be a director because of making short films with my friends. And,
Sure.
that was my path. Until I got into the camera operating world, which took me off that path. And I just fell in love with operating. And that just took me, which I'm so happy. I still love it as a career. And I love doing both now. So it's been
That's great.
a wonderful career, and it's been a fun trajectory.
Backing up, because I just have to ask, what was your grandfather's name and like what kind of stuff was he in?
His name was Leif Erikson. He was on the waterfront. He had a TV show named High Chaparral. He was the main guy. He did like Abbott and Costello meets Captain Kidd. He was in the original Invaders from Mars. He did
That's cool.
so much stuff. So it was fun, like growing up as a kid. Like they'd have all these old, like, when I'd come out to California to visit my grandparents, they'd have like all these people like that I had no idea who they were, but they were like all these weird, like famous people that, as a kid, you're like, oh, that's your friends, So
That's
it was
so
cool.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's like old Hollywood right there. That's pretty neat.
Straight up old Hollywood. It was to the point where I used to go to what's the place in Hollywood, the steakhouse, the famous steakhouse. You know what I'm talking about.
Musso and Frank's?
Musso and Frank's, yes.
Yeah.
To the point where even when I came back out here to go to school, my grandmother we would go to Musso and Frank's long after my grandfather passed away, and the waiter that used to wait on my grandparents was still waiting tables at Musso and Frank's, older than shit. I hope I can cuss on this, but and he was, and my grandma's like, oh, this is so and so, who's been here for so and so long time, and like we knew it, and so I just love the fact that it would like. It still was kind of all intact when I came out to LA, and my grandmother,
so great.
like, it's cool. So that was my grandfather. He was a huge inspiration for me, as was my grandmother.
That's really, really cool. Wow. That's fantastic. So you mentioned that you pushed dolly and you worked with camera operators. So were there things that you can remember learning from watching those camera operators that impressed you on like, oh, this is what a camera operator does, or this is what a camera operator doesn't do actually when they fail?
Yeah, it's to me that like some of the camera operators I worked with that I really liked a lot were the ones that had a lot of communication, that would always talk about things and like talk through the shots, talk to me about the shots. Really the guys that were so into the storytelling of it, not just the technical aspect, which I believe is if you don't know how to tell a story as a camera operator, that's a huge part of this whole thing. We're here to tell stories. We're not here to tilt up, pan left and right. We're storytellers. We help create the vision and tell the story. So I really enjoyed the fact that I would work with operators that were really kind of like story focused, but also had the technical skills. I also learned, this is a funny one. I learned that the whole time I would work with these great operators, and there were some operators that were just complete dicks. And I remember just being like, and the one thing I'm going to make sure I'm hopefully never am in this business is a dick. Yeah. And I want to make sure everybody's happy working with me and, like having a good time. Because I think that our business is so awesome that it's all about having a good time, but also, we're doing cool stuff. So why make it miserable? Some of these guys are like, they're so like, I'm this guy, I'm a camera operator, this is my life, and, yep. What do I say? Or people get mad when a DP or a director doesn't like the shot they came up with. Well, Jesus Christ, you're a camera operator. You know what I mean? Like, we're telling stories, but hey, look, they're the ones that want you to do this and that. So it's like, we all have to work together. And why you get so upset about those kind of things?
I totally agree. It's funny that you say that because Chris Chulak, who is a sort of mentor.
I know Chris Chulak.
Did you work with him on like Southland or something, or what'd you work with him on?
I went and day played on SEAL Team when my buddy Eric Leach was shooting it.
Okay, and Chris is fantastic.
I love him. Yeah. He's great.
And as a matter of fact, hopefully I'm interviewing him shortly. We've been trying to get together on it. But I remember him telling me early on, I don't know what we were talking about. It might have been just before I started directing. But I remember him telling me, watch, he was talking about directors, watch other directors and see when they fail. And I was like, really? And he goes, here's the thing. Yep. When people succeed, it's often like you don't really realize it until after the fact, or it's not always apparent, but when they fail, you can see it, and that's where you learn more than anything is watching people fail. And I was like, that's kind of brilliant, actually.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because people always ask me that same question, and I'll tell you, like, for those people that are listening to the podcast that want to I always tell people you don't have to always stay with the career you're in right there. It's like just because you're an operator doesn't mean you have to be an operator forever. Go off and do things that you dream of. No, follow your dreams. And that's why I direct when I can and operate when I can. And I love doing both. But I will say that it's the best school you could ever have is just being on set and doing the job, because you do see these directors that are fantastic. And then you do see these directors that are not fantastic. And I think that alone is such education to take with you when you know what worked and what didn't, who failed and why they failed.
Absolutely.
I think it's the best film school you could get. I mean, I wish I would have known that before I spent a lot of money at LACC going to film school, but
well, there's a lot
with
of
my degree
lot
that
of
no
us
one can find.
Yeah, there's no question. So you took the class, and then did you just go out and get a loan and buy a rig? Like, how'd you get a rig?
So I took the class, and what I did was, because I was broke as a joke, and I was gripping, and luckily, we had the Steadicam forums, we had these places where we could buy used gear. What was that, Derek Whitehouse? So like he's gone now, but like he had all the Steadicam gear and things. And so, it's funny, I'm bringing up, I'm really aging myself, I think.
Oh no, it's great. But remember, Derek Whitehouse had, I want to say, like the second to last page of American Cinematographer with that ad that was just like words, and it was like BL3, BL1.
He did. It was just like, okay, I guess maybe I'll call this guy.
That's great.
But the way I did it was I couldn't just take the money out at that point in time. And I talked to Charles Pappert, because he was actually operating then. And I said, hey man, how the hell do I can't just drop all this money on a rig. And he's just like, well, just buy it piece by piece. So for me, I was like, well, that's smart. So as I was gripping, I was buying, I'd make some money. I'd buy the Pro One battery cage, and with some batteries, then I'd be broke again. And then I'd buy the center post, and then I'd like, okay, I'm broke. And then I'd buy the gimbal, I'm broke again. And it took me a really, really long time to actually get my sled. But I didn't want to go the route where I had a loan looming over my head. I wanted to actually have something that if it sat in the corner, it wasn't killing me or driving me nuts. And yes, it's a long road to get to that point. But
smart.
I felt like I did it the right way, where, if it wasn't working, it wasn't causing me an issue. It was just there. And if I got the call, awesome. I mean, it took me a long time to get the sled built, but in the end, it was worth it to me, and I came up from a Pro One sled with an EFP arm and, like an old Model 3 vest. And then I would upgrade to the Silver Spring arm when that was going on, the Australia Silver Spring arm, which was great. And then finally I had enough money. I as working, I ended up getting a Pro arm. And I'll never forget going to George Paddock and Pro when they were here in LA. And I remember bringing cash for that thing. And it was the most money I'd ever spent in one swoop. And I remember Ashley, I think it was Ashley, yeah, that was there. And I remember holding the cash, and like we were there, and she had the arm in the bag, and I'm like, I couldn't let go of that cash. I was having the hardest time.
It was like 20 grand originally, I think, right?
20. Yeah. It was like 24 because I got all the springs and everything, but it was
okay. Yeah.
I looked at this stupid thing in this little bag sitting there next to me, and I at this point in time, I think I drove like a Isuzu Via-Cross piece of shit, but this arm was more expensive than the car I was driving, and I was so stressed out, and we just had this moment of like staring at each other and she's like, okay, you can let go now, and I'm like, and I let go of the cash, and I took the Pro arm, and there you go.
That's great. That's great. Actually, it's funny you say that about the car, because now I think about it, it's like, yeah, I used to drive around this crappy Subaru, and the gear in the back was worth 8-9 times more than the car was. I never thought about that before, but
100%.
We all did it. So that's now, what, out of curiosity, around what year were you talking to Pappert? Did Pappert give you that advice? You remember?
I want to say that was the first season of Scrubs. Which was like 2002.
Okay, so it's very likely that he was living downstairs from me at that time. I had a house in Silver Lake, and he used to rent the place underneath me.
Yeah. I love Charles to this day. Like, I mean, he gave me such great advice, and to be honest, he was the one. He's who told me how to get the rig and how to do it. And I didn't even think about that, because I was, when you're starting out, you think you just have to go, I got to get the whole thing. No, you don't. And that was the beauty of Pro at that time, is you could buy it as pieces. It wasn't like,
Yep.
just you had to buy the one big sled, like the Master Series that came out looked like this crazy contraption.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah.
But so what did you first start? Did you start doing like student films, music videos? Like what was your start?
So that goes back into being a grip again, which is a fun way. Because I had worked as a grip and I had met all these different DPs, and they all knew me as a grip.
Nice.
Yes, I went to film schools and I said, hey, I wanted to actually mess up on student films, which I'm sorry if I messed anyone's student film up. So I did.
Hey. Yeah.
That's the thing. I didn't come up from camera department. I came up from grip. So I had to get in there and just get my hands on the camera and then just get some footage and really kind of do it. And I was scared as hell when I did it. I'm not joking. I was nervous. But
well, what made you, I mean, obviously there's the aspect of I'm not quite a Steadicam operator, but was it just that you feel like an imposter in the camera world, or like, I mean, what are you nervous about?
I was definitely nervous because I didn't, it's some guys come up from camera and they do the like second AC, first AC operator. I was a grip, a dolly grip. I didn't know what I was doing with the cameras. Like if you asked me to do like anything, I was like, I have no idea. I just know how to put this camera on here, how to plug in these cables, and how to compose and how to do shots and how to tell the
Yep.
stories. And that was my strong point with that. But anything else, I was just jumping in there. I just jumped right in there and I was like, let's go. And that was for me, learning on student films and messing up on student films and succeeding on student films was a great way to do it. And then when I felt really confident with myself, I called those DPs that I worked with as a grip and I said, hey, look, if your guy that you use isn't available and you have something, look, I've been operating, I'll show you my crappy little student film reel. And if you want, let's do this. And luckily it actually worked out. And these guys would call me and I started doing that. And that's really how I feel like I kind of jumped from, into my career really quick, was that I had already had established DP relationships. And that's what did it. Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic. And look, I guarantee you a fair amount of that comes from your work ethic and also your personality, because those people are like, yeah, he's a good guy to have around. He's not going to bullshit me, so he's got to know what he's doing. Yeah. So, yeah. Do you remember some of the earlier either failures or successes of when you went out with the rig, of things that worked or didn't work?
I think I fried a camera on a student film one time by not having the right polarity on a cable, like a film camera.
Especially on a student film too. That's too bad.
It was a student film, and I was like, "Oh, gee, what happened to the camera?" But like, I literally remember the camera smoking, and I was like, "Oh my god, I think it was me."
Oh.
And I'm pretty sure it was because I didn't have the right polarity on a certain cable, or I don't know what happened, but I remember that was a rough one. I also remember the thing is too, like when you start doing things, I started feeling like I could do it all. I was like, "Oh, I can do this, I can do that," and like running backwards and like doing that kind of stuff. And I'll never forget like being so confident with, this one like student film. I remember running backwards and having this dolly grip. I said, hey, look, the dolly grip, being a student who has never dolly grip before, but like I was like, look, man, I'm going to be running backwards full speed. And I saw all these potholes like off to my left. I said, look, man, just hold on to my vest and just make sure I don't go left and keep me out of those potholes. He's like, yeah, man, don't worry about it.
Oh,
sure enough, man, I start running. I'm like, yeah, this is cool. And I'm not thinking about it. And I'm running. Next thing I feel my left foot drop into a hole. And I just went straight back, is like super hard. I remember the mag. I'll never forget. My shoulder took the brunt of it, ripped my shirt, and my arm flesh totally torn off. And the back mag slammed the back of the asphalt. And then that camera and the sled just came down on top of my chest like Thor's hammer. I remember it was so heavy I could barely get up.
Oh God! You're like
everybody
you didn't
ran
snap
over.
Your leg. Jeez.
Oh, dude, it was brutal. And I will say, to me, that was when I started feeling pretty confident about Steadicam, it was kind of a nice ego burst. It's good to be humbled every now and then like that. That's the worst wreck I've ever had in my career, by the way. And
that's a pretty big one. I mean, it sounds like you got lucky, because that could have gone much worse.
I got really lucky. Yeah, it was painful, and I still have a scar like on my left shoulder from it. But it's like, it was a humbling experience, and that's I guess my failure with that one is the fact that, like, look, man, I could have done it so many other ways, like, on a rickshaw or something. Maybe student film probably didn't have a rickshaw, but or in a dolly and a Garfield mount. I had a Garfield mount. We could probably done it that way, but
Yeah, right.
I was
Yeah.
so
Thinking
like,
back,
man, I'm pretty awesome, and I was like this
I could
punk
do
rock.
anything.
Yeah, I was like, I had like a mohawk and like, I was such a cheese ball. I had like black fingernails and like I was like, running around in Converse, which nowadays I'm like I'm like one step away from Rockports because I'm feeling so crippled.
Times change. There you go.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming you basically did mostly Steadicam for a while, and then at some point you started getting called in for like B camera and Steadicam.
Exactly.
What,
yeah.
So not coming out of because that's a different skill set, right? I mean, some of it's the same, obviously, like framing and storytelling that holds, but then there's a different skill set. So I'm assuming that you obviously on a different level know how to work with the dolly grip. So you've done that before, but like, what was that learning curve like?
It was just one of those things where you got thrown into it, and I basically just would like, luckily I had been on film sets before, so I already knew, like basically like the process and what we had to do. And I remember how other operators would kind of do their thing, and I just was, and then and being on a Steadicam and just showing up to sets, and I would always just observe the other operators before I got into camera operating and watch what they were doing. So I was really like, so like hooked on watching what they do, because I knew at some point I was going to get to that level. So basically, I mean, long story short, I got in there and I bullshitted everything, like straight up, like, okay, here we go, like, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to be like, yeah, well, I studied the lenses and the blah, blah, blah. No, I fucking bullshitted. And like, I was like, yeah, well, give me this, 50 mil, sure, let's put this on over here. And like, luckily I knew framing and would follow the actors and everything like that. But like, I mean, and I messed up, sure. I mean, you get yelled at, and that's what it was. But at the same time, it just made me stronger. If you mess up, you never mess up again, or you do a lot better with that stuff. So that was it. And I remember learning the wheels was horrifying, because I did this movie and the DP said, well, you're using the wheels on this job and that's what you're doing. I was like, okay. And literally it was trial by fire. I had to actually figure out the wheels like on this job.
On the job.
I'll never forget. It's the dreaded stand-up scene from someone sitting at a table or the shot. And when you're on the wheels and you've never done that before, you're like, oh shit. And I'm sitting there while they're lighting, just practicing and how many turns it is, counting in my head, how many turns. And then when time came to actually do it, as soon as the guy stood up, I went the wrong way.
Oh.
I tilted down instead of up. And I remember being like, they were like, what? Like, you could hear that Video Village. And I was like, sorry, guys. The gears were wrong. And like,
yeah, right. Again, these are European wheels.
yeah. I bullshitted that one too. And then, eventually we got it. But like, it was trial by fire. And it was, and from now on, like, I am more of a wheels guy. Like, I own my own area head, too. And I will use the wheels way over I would an O'Connor head. That's my preferred go-to, and that was literally like, it was trial by fire. But I also think that when you learn the craft of the wheels, it just looks better. It looks more cinematic, and things are more precise. So I'm, there you go. A lot of failures here.
That's fantastic. So did you have, like, a lot of people will have that like show, like usually a TV show that they got on, which is just like the same crew and the same number of episodes. And it's just like that. Like, did you have some experience that after it, you were like, I can go onto a set and do whatever they need? Like, was there a show that did that for you, or was it a process over time?
I think it was more of like, over time, it was when Los Angeles really had a lot of indie films going on. Mm-hmm. And I ended up really doing a ton of like these independent movies, which is a shame that, like, and maybe I'm just out of the loop, but I miss the days where these indie films were happening all over Los Angeles. And like, you would like, it really was a great gateway for people to get to where they want to be in this business. And I feel like they don't do those kind of things anymore. And I don't know if you just, every now and then you'll see an indie film, but like, not like what we had like in the late 90s, early 2000s. Like those were like all like the $1 million movies. You don't see that anymore in Los Angeles. And so I think that like a lot of the stuff that I started on was those kind of things, and I got very confident with that. And then to the point where I started doing like things that were like on TV or doing a movie that actually went to the movie theater, I had already got to the point where I felt pretty confident in getting in there and like I would be
Gotcha.
okay. And I'll be honest, to this day, over all these years, and I'm sure you have the same feeling, I still fuck up. Like we all do. No, I'm not king badass at all. And like we all mess up, but all you do is like, I don't worry about it as much anymore unless it's like a real critical shot that like you get one at it. But other than that, it's like, okay, you're going to get to go again. We're not doing stage performance theater here. It's like where you have to get it on each take. We all still mess up to this day. And, as long as you realize you're going to mess up and it's going to be, as long as you don't mess up on certain things like a stunt or whatever, that you only get the one take at, then, people have to realize it's just going to be fine.
Yeah. Well, I think that it's interesting that you bring that up because I've talked with people about this before. I think that one of the major shifts, I mean, obviously we're talking about being an operator, but probably being a director and being an actor and being whatever, is when you realize finally like, oh, everybody screws up. Oh, I'm going to screw up. And in a weird way, once you realize that you're going to screw up and you're going to survive it, I think it gives you the ability to actually do better work because you're willing to like push it a little closer to that point where you might screw up. And actually a lot of times that's where the cool stuff happens. A friend of mine I was talking with about this, an actor, was saying, he said, well, it's the same thing with acting because it's like the great performances are right up to the point of being ridiculous, but they pull back. And he said, and in his theory, and I think he's right, he said, that's why there's so many great actors who sometimes you'll see the performance and you go, that was terrible. And it's like, yeah, because that one, they pushed it too far, but they were playing on the edge. I think there's something to that, is that when you accept that, you actually almost have the ability to do better work.
I think it also is like, even with that, it's the fact that your nerves aren't as you're not tripping out as much as it is when you finally become confident on a film set and you're confident in the work that you're going to do, but that you're going to mess up. I feel like it just is when you go to set, you're just like, okay, it becomes a day at work, like any other job that you get to, and you're not like, I remember having the jitters for a longest time of like, just, oh God, I just hope I get through this job. Like I hope everything's going to be okay. And, when you finally get to the place where you're confident and you're not stressed out about things, and exactly like that, where you're you're going to mess up, you're going to succeed. And it's just, everybody's going to have that moment. I think it just makes it a better situation and you're a better operator.
How many years you've been operating now?
Oh man, at least 21, 22 years, but like I've been in the business for 25.
Yeah.
25 years. Yeah.
You get nervous when you start a job?
Yeah. I don't sleep in like I do actually. Weirdly enough, it's like I'll have to take like ZQL or something the night before just to make sure I get some sleep.
But is it a different? Is it or obviously originally it was like, I hope I remembered all my gear and I hope I don't like make a fool out of myself and whatever. Has it morphed into a different type of nervousness?
It's just one of those things where I always feel like it's like, okay, I hope this director's cool. I hope that we're all going to get along. I hope the DP's great. There's some guys that like you work with and like what you're getting into. So, there's guys that I work with that's like, you got to prepare for battle. You're going into this thing, that it's going to, you kind of got to, pump yourself up like you're about to go into wars with certain things. And I think it's like that. You just don't want to mess up and you just want to do a good job and make sure that you're doing the right thing. And usually like after day one, it's like, okay, I'm fine. Right. Everything's going to be okay, So but I still think that for me, I don't find myself as being like this, I don't come in being a hero or anything like that. I'm just coming in to do a cool job and do my job well and do it the best I can, and I think it's just in me. It's just me personally that like I will still get nervous on day one, or the night before.
I'll tell you, having done, I don't know, 140 of these now, I'll tell you, it's not just you, it's all of us.
I'm sure. Yeah.
There's
well,
like
any
one
guy
or two
that says that they're
there.
just, yeah. I mean, I think anybody that's like just says, "Oh, I'm fine," like, okay, sure. Either you're bullshit, you're bullshitting us or whatever, or you have too much of an ego to get through it. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So what did you make? How long did it take you to the point where you were do an 8-camera Steadicam on shows?
Man, I don't know. Like I probably, geez, I mean, I was B camera for a while, and then it just, I can't remember when my first 8-camera job. I couldn't even tell you.
Oh, okay.
Going back that far, like it was a long time ago. I did a lot of B camera steady first, and did it that way. But there was also, again, going back to the indie films, we'd only have one camera, and if I was the camera operator, I was a camera. You know what I mean? So there you kind of get that credit right there, and you're like, oh, cool, I'm an 8-camera. All right, and everyone's like, oh, he's an 8-camera guy. Yeah, right. Sure am. All right. I think that was kind of like where it kind of all, people started doing that, but also it was all about personality. And I would meet people on TV shows, and they would boost me up later on in the next season or whatever, and movies. It just happened. And I think it's just all about personality, and people like working with you. I think that's a lot of this business. I think it's a lot of this business is personality. And that's, I would tell that, anybody get into it, and like, don't be a dick, have a good personality, work well with others. That's going to go a lot farther than just, I'm so technical, I know this and that. I think that's a huge asset to have when you go on a set.
I'll tell you on that note that I don't usually watch these things. I think I was on a plane or something like that, and Think for the Fall Guy came up, and the two stars who was it? Ryan Gosling and who was in the Fall Guy?
Emily Blunt.
And Emily Blunt, they were talking about something or other. And at one point he just went, and our camera operator, BJ, did like, it named you by name. And she was like, oh my God, he's the best. And he would get up and running on the sand and this and that and the other. But it was literally, I think I was on a plane actually, because I remember looking around and being like, come on, everybody listen to this. Like, how cool is this? These people are like on it, because those things are fairly programmed, and they've got their points to hit. And I'm sure you weren't one of them. But they were sincerely like, he was fantastic. And it was such a cool shout out. It was great.
Yeah, everybody started texting me being like, did you see this? I'm like, I had no idea. I'm so oblivious to anything at the time. Because like, to be honest, when I'm off work, all I'm thinking about is like snowboarding or surfing or mountain biking or going camping. And but like, and like hanging out with my wife. Probably, and it's like, where's me and my wife's next adventure going to be? Oh, look at this, honey. And like the people started sending me that. And I was like, oh, that's really, I mean, to be honest, like it's rare to see like actors give a full shout out to an operator or things like that. It's very, like, people get it, but it's like, I thought that was really nice of them to like, pull that out of the hat. And, because we got worked pretty hard on Fall Guy. That
seems like a really hard movie to do.
I love that we did it practically. I love that most everything in that, like all the stunts were like practical, and everything. We were there doing that stuff. And yeah, the beach, there was this beach scene that like, there's this one like Steadicam shot when she's trying to explain these shots, and we're moving all over the place, and these people are coming up, and explosions are happening behind them, and helicopters are flying by. And it was all timing in that stuff. And that's stressful to make sure that I'm not the guy that messes up, the actors get their performance, and all these things going on around you, that if you don't hit your mark or you don't do the right timing, it's not going to work out. You're going to have to reset and do it. And it was a pretty long take on beach sand. And that was just one of them. We did another one that was like 8 minutes long, and I almost died. And we did it golden hour. And it's the very beginning where Ryan Gosling gets his face scanned, and he talks to this girl at the machine, and then he goes out a trailer, and we follow behind him, and they go out, and he meets the stunt coordinator. Well, that scene cuts, all of a sudden they're all of a sudden in a dune buggy, and he's going a roll, whatever. Yeah. But that scene went on for like 8 minutes. Of course it did. It never made the movie. It never made it. It was so brutal, and it was painful. And that happens a lot. You try to do your best, and things get cut. I did another thing on this TV show called The Offer, and Sal Totino called me in, and there was this crane step off, the opening shot of this TV show, The Offer. And we came down, we went through this parade, we find Giovanni Ribisi, we kind of cruise through, it's all these people, and then you go into this restaurant, and we end up sitting down, and I turned it on. I was like, let's see how that shot came out. And I turn on the thing, and it shows the crane going down, and it cuts to inside the restaurant.
It's deadly. You gotta be kidding me. That's the worst. Well, actually, I don't know about you, but what's even worse for me, and these don't sound like those situations, is when you're doing a massive shot and you know that they're going to cut in the middle of it. They may even use the second half of it, but you know they're going to cut, and you go, "Can't we just do these as two pieces? It'll be better." No, we want it all as one, and then it goes exactly the way that you thought it would.
100%. And that's kind of how that Fall Guy shot came out. I had a feeling, I was like, in my head, I was thinking like, I don't know, man. Like the shot wasn't so engaging that it's going to keep the audience like really glued to their seats, and they just kind of like Ryan and the other guy were just kind of rambling on about things. They were telling a story, and it just went on and on. And I kept thinking to myself, like, they're never going to use this whole thing. Like they're never going to use this whole shot. And sure enough, they didn't.
And well, it's funny that you mentioned that other Randy shot on the sand, because I do remember watching that, and I couldn't even listen to what they were saying, because all I was thinking was that poor Steadicam operator is walking around on sand for 4 minutes or whatever, and it had, I mean, like my legs were cramping up watching it. It's just, that's the hardest thing in the world to do. It's horrible.
Well, the funny thing is that shot I'll never forget. Like we did it a few times, and I was starting to get pretty gassed out on it, and I remember going up to Ryan Gosling and going, look, because originally I would go and I would push as the dune buggies come in. I'd push up to a tight 2 shot of him and Winston before and then he gets out. And I told Ryan, I was like, man, I'm getting pretty beat, dude. And like, this is like, I forgot how many takes we did. Maybe it was take 5 on this or whatever. But like, Beach Sam was killing it. I don't know. We did a lot. And it was always a big reset, which luckily gave me a break. But, big reset. But I told Ryan, I said, hey, look, at the end of this take, if I don't come to you, if you don't see me pushing into you, come to me. And he's like, and Ryan's such a bro. He's such a rad. He was like, yeah, man, yeah. Sure enough, shot happens and Ryan comes right up to me because it was the last take.
I love the fact that like I have every intention of pushing into you, but my body may not do it. So you come to me. And the fact that he totally got it too. Oh, that's great. That's wonderful. Yeah, I've heard nothing but wonderful things about him, but that's really good to hear.
He rules. He's awesome. Yeah, he's great.
That's a lot of fun. Beetlejuice. You got to work with Des Whelan.
Yeah, that was cool. And to go to that point, I only did the American portion of it because they shot most of that in London.
Yeah.
But I got called in to go in and do all the stuff they shot in Vermont and Boston.
Fantastic.
And BJ McDonnell, Beetlejuice 1 fan, was like, it's funny because there's certain movies you're like, you just go do it. And then there's movies that mean a lot to you. When I got that call just for that bit of the American part of Beetlejuice, I was so pumped about that because one, Tim Burton is a huge inspiration for me, director wise and visionary wise. I love everything. Like I have some of his art in my house, which I bought early, and I love that guy. And he's awesome, by the way. If anyone is out there is wondering how he is personally, he's awesome. But yeah, we got to do that stuff, and I worked with Des, and I was just so stoked to be a part of that. And it was funny because Jenna Ortega's in that movie, and I directed her in Studio 666. So, and it was great because like I showed up there, and I'm like I'm in Vermont in the actual town where they shot the original Beetlejuice at, and she comes riding up on a bicycle, and she like does a double take. She goes, "No way!" And she like drops the bike, and came over, gave me a big hug.
Great.
She's fantastic. So
well, I was interviewing Des in London, and he was telling me about Beetlejuice. He said, "Yeah, we had this great operator, BJ," and I was like, "Oh man, why can't I get to work with Des Whelan?" He is one of the best operators in the world. That guy is so great and so giving.
He was great.
Was Tim Burton? I mean, was he the kind of guy that you could sit down and talk to him about his movies and directing and whatnot, and pick his brain from your point of view?
I'm never that guy that ever approaches unless they approach me. I won't do that stuff because I just feel like it's, if the timing was right and we were at a restaurant somewhere having a dinner for some reason, I would talk about it. But like, I'm more of like, If I'm getting hired to do a job, I'm there to do the job, and I'll talk to them if the opportunity presents itself. Sure. But I just stepped back and watched Tim do his thing, and it's again going back to the thing where you learn things from directors and that are good, and you can learn from the bad. And I was so impressed just watching Tim and watching his process, and just I would see kind of his ticks when he would do things, and it was really great to watch. And he would. When you're sitting there and you do a shot and then he calls cut and he looks over at you and he looks at you and he like gives a thumbs up like, yeah, was that good? And you go, yeah. And you're like, and he's like, all right, let's go. He was like that. And it was so cool. Like Tim Burton just gave me a thumbs up, and at the end of the shoot, he gave me a big hug, and I was like, oh dude, I just hugged Tim Burton. How cool is that? Like one of my one of my heroes, so
That's fantastic. Well, there's also that part, and I've been there before, where you're like, after that happens, you're like, Tim Burton just asked me if the shot was okay. Like, why is Tim Burton asking me things?
Yeah, totally.
That's great.
But it was cool because in the town that they shot Beetlejuice in, they rebuilt the house on the hill. That house wasn't originally there. They rebuilt that thing, and it was massive. And then Des probably went all into that, and they just they fixed up the town, they redid the bridge. It was just kind of a neat thing as the young kid in me that loved Beetlejuice, being actually in that town and seeing all this right in front of me, and just being like, man, I'm so lucky to have this opportunity, and I just, it's one of those things where in so many jobs you just take with you how lucky and grateful you are to have these moments. And I think we're all very lucky when we get those moments.
There's no question about it. And I'll say on the flip side, there's sometimes when I've been on jobs that either are just tough for whatever reason they are. I mean, all jobs are tough, I think, but some of them are just like pure joy, and some of them are a little bit of a grind, as we've all had. I try to sort of I try to step out of myself and go, dude, you would have killed to be here when you were a kid. Yeah. Like, you're here, like you made the show, and then it's like, okay, so it's like, I got to look at this a little differently. I don't know if you ever have those, you got to reset yourself sometimes. Right. And
I feel like, I agree with that. I feel like if there's a moment, and is there a moment where you're just getting kind of cranky about things? And I usually try to keep my experience or what's going on with me, if I'm frustrated internally. I try not to let it show on set. Never let them see you sweat, as they say, or get angry. But it's like you have to turn around and go, you know what, man? Like, BJ McDonnell, the Dolly Grip, you're here now.
Right.
Like, how cool is this? Like, man, so just suck it up and enjoy the fact that you're here, and they chose you to be here, and there's a reason why you're here. So you always have to kind of reset. I agree.
That's fantastic. How was Springsteen delivering from nowhere?
This is a funny one, honestly. Like Masa, the DP, who's fantastic. I love his work. He operates almost everything. I was there as the Steadicam and A operator, but like, I really was more of like the B guy, and I did get in there a lot, but Masa really was, he handholds thing. He's really in control of that. I got the A camera credit, but like that was basically through my deal memo, I think. But Masa was more the operator on that than I was. I'll tell you straight up. Like, some people wouldn't even say that, but like, Masa did a great job. I did a lot of operating on it, and I did the Steadicam on it, and there was days though, like when they were in a small room where I would sit on the truck and like, I would write. I would take that time to go write things for directing or try to get a pitch going. But it was a great experience, and I loved watching Masa work, but he's got his own thing where he does that mostly. He's mostly the operator.
Did you guys do big concert stuff there, or was a lot of that like AI and not AI, but whatever?
No, we did. We did that stuff. The end of the movie, like the last week of shooting, like we actually shot the Stone Pony where he used to go and play. Awesome. Like, we were actually there.
Whether that was real or not. That
was real. We were at Stone Pony, and it was really neat. And we shot right there. We were there for like 2 weeks. And we would, all his stuff. I was the only thing, the big concert that they do at the end, I wasn't there for, because that's when my house burned down.
Geez, and the fires. That's right. Your house burned down. Oh wait, and am I wrong, or do I remember that this was your grandfather's house too, that he had like built or something like that?
It was my generational home, and I ended up buying it out of the family trust when my grandmother passed away, and I bought it outright from my sister and my mom. It was just it's been my home as a young kid. That's where I would come to go visit my grandparents from Florida. I would come out to, so it was very, I don't want to we don't have to get into all that, but it was a tough thing to see and tough thing to do. And I'm still dealing with it, trying to get the thing rebuilt, but it's a mess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
I left about a week early because, as we were sitting there at the crane, and my wife was calling me, telling me how bad the fire was, I was like, oh my God, it's getting real. And I remember looking on my security cameras, and as soon as and I remember the director was right behind me, and as soon as my camera came on, my cars were all, on fire. All my cars were on fire.
Oh my God!
I stood up from the controls. I was like on the screenshot, and I remember like almost being very weak at the knees and just being like, I got to get out of here. I got to go home. And Disney and the director and Moss and everybody, they were like, we got to get you out of here. And I flew out that morning, and yeah,
But
that was that.
most importantly, everybody was okay. Nobody was hurt.
No, nobody was hurt. My wife got, her daughter and her daughter's boyfriend out, and our animals, and
Good.
that was it. Like she got some
Wow.
paintings out that meant a lot to us, like some of the Tim Burton stuff, some Clive
Oh my
Barker
God.
paintings. I had two H.R. Geiger, like real H.R. Geiger art that we got out. I'm a big art guy, so and these are all movie people that I love their
Yeah.
art. So over the years I collected it. She got that out, thank God. But we lost absolutely everything else. She didn't even get her clothes out.
Wow. If you don't mind me asking you, because you don't meet that many people who experience something like this, I can completely understand, obviously, how negative that is. Are there things that you bring out of it that end up being positives almost, that change the way that you view things? Or like, I mean, is that a weird question to ask? I don't know.
No. I mean, look, we're in it right now still. We don't even have a building permit, and that's the hardest thing, is that we're trying to still get that, and it's been over a year. What I got a lot of it out of it was how dedicated my wife was to getting the things that were meaningful out of the house, and trying to save what she could as fast as she could, because that fire moved quick. I know how dedicated of a partner she is, and how strong she is going forward and trying to get things going, because now I'm the one that has to go to work, and she's dealing with the terrible shit while I'm over here making movies and working on a film set and having a good time. She's over here like having a migraine, dealing with county and architects and that whole thing. So I think I learned that. It really brings back, it's also like, whatever you have can be gone in a flash too. Like that's, so we're so minimalistic, but that's it's a crazy thing when you go through that. It's hard to explain. And a lot of us went through it. Trey, a lot of people I know like lost their stuff. Trey Kleinsmith lost his house too. Jacques Dufresne lost his house. Caleb Deschanel lost his house.
I actually went through, Trey and I did Wedding Crashers together, and it's nothing, but I went through and pulled all my pictures from Wedding Crashers and sent them to him, because I think he lost all his hard drives and everything and whatever.
Oh, wow.
Just it kind of it boggles the mind. Well, I don't want to dwell on that too much, but I'm glad you guys are okay, and I'm glad you're rebuilding, and I'm sorry your wife has to deal with the city.
I think the city's afraid of my wife now, because when she comes knocking, it's like, because she's on top of it.
That's great. So tell me about directing. You've talked all about operating, obviously. Were you kind of like directing little things here and there through the whole time, and trying to continue that dream, or did that just sort of go away and then come back?
That's exactly what happened. Like I always wanted to direct, and I would, like I said before, like when I was in Florida, me and my buddies were just making movies for fun, and I'd write these stupid things, and we'd make these dumb films with what we had. And, we were making our own squibs, which is so dangerous. Like we would take oh dude, like it was, because I was so obsessed with like special effects and like guns and stuff. So we would go to like these flea markets and buy like these crappy like Kevlar like vests that, like, in Florida you can get that stuff. In Florida you can get whatever. Yeah. But then we'd drive over to Alabama and get firecrackers. And I watched like a Tom Savini thing and like how he would do squibs. And
oh my God,
I came up with this idea of like basically getting rocket igniters, like those model rockets. And
right?
we would we would tape these things on the Kevlar vest with a condom full of fake blood, and we'd run a wire. And we had these rocket igniters, and we would do the shot of like the guy's chest exploding. But it was always really funny because, like, we'd put the cables in, and we'd cut the fuses out. We put the cables in just so it would hopefully ignite as fast as it could and blow up. But every time it was funny because you'd always see a puff of smoke, and then it would blow up.
And then it would blow up.
Anyways.
Oh my God, that's great.
It was so ridiculous. But it was all about that. But yes, when I moved to LA, film school, I was like, I'm going to be a director. And then when I got on set, I became a grip, and I was like, I learned that, and I really kind of focused on that because I really wanted to make sure I knew what was going on. And then I still was, trying to direct, but and then I got into camera, and and when I got into camera, that really took me, like, my focus really became about camera and like trying to be the best I could be at it, and try to get in there as and make this a career choice. And turned out wonderful for me. And when I got to a point where I could actually start focusing on directing again, I did that. And, directing's a hard gig. It's hard to get those things.
Yeah.
It's years and processes. So it's, yes, my focus was shifted, but then I'm kind of back at it. And so like now I just work on projects and I pitch and hopefully something goes. If it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. I'm not freaking out about it. It's like,
So tell me about the Foo Fighters.
That's what it is.
How did that come about, and what was that like?
So that was all came about with my buddy Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey and Brandon Trust, who's a DP, a friend of mine who also directs. And Brandon was going to do that one. He couldn't do it. Jim Rhoda and them talked to Dave. I believe that I had directed and wrote some Slayer music videos. And I believe like Jim's like, oh, here, talk to BJ. He's done these Slayer things. They're crazy for what they did. And then Dave was like, okay, yeah, let's chat with him. Send him the concept of what I want to do. And let's talk to him. Let's talk about like what he would do, like who his influences are, blah, blah. So they sent me his idea and I was so excited about it. So I just sat down and I had like a meeting in like 2 days. So I just made like a real shitty lookbook or like an idea book of like what I wanted to do. And I ended up going in and having kind of a sit down with Dave and, I showed him what I thought would be cool. And I talked about my inspirations of John Carpenter and people like that in horror films. And we just really vibed and he liked like the Slayer videos and the things that we've done. And Jim and Jim Rhoda and John Ramsey, the producers, were like, yeah, dude, this, BJ's a good buddy and I think he'll do good. And that's really how it kind of came up and kind of came down to it. And it was awesome. And we had the best time. We just made a super long, silly Foo Fighters music video movie. I mean, that's really what it is. It's like, it's so campy and silly and it's exactly what we set out to do. So it was fun.
It has a what do you call it? A Scooby-Doo feel to it almost. Like
100%.
Like tone, that was intentional, I'm assuming.
It's intentional. We actually it's funny you said Scooby-Doo because we started calling it Scooby-Foo.
That's great. How were they? Because have they ever like acted like that before?
No, they've always done their music videos, so they always, they know the like camera stuff. But it was funny because you could tell that like the first week they were a bit nervous. Dave is like a natural in front of camera. He's fantastic and he's easygoing. The guys I could tell were a little bit nervous, but my whole thing was like, I remember telling them, say, hey guys, look, don't even get nervous about this because you guys aren't playing like a written character. You guys are playing yourselves. So
just be yourselves, right? Yeah.
Be yourselves. And here's our script. We have it right here. But honestly, I said, we'll do the words and we'll get it through and everything. I said, but honestly, if it's something you guys would actually say to each other, say it. Just do it. And if you guys riff, great, because we have 2 cameras and we'll get all that. We'll get the footage, and if it goes off rails and we love what you're doing, we'll keep flowing with it. You know what I mean? And I think a lot of our better stuff came out of the fact that when they got comfortable and they started having their band banter, which is always funny, being in a band and being around band people. That stuff came out better than what was on the script. So it was just a lot of fun and it became a real collaborative thing. I was really happy because the crew was having such a great time. And that's very important to me, that everybody the crew is having fun. Everybody's laughing. Nobody's pissed off. It's like, everybody's like, I'm all for, like, somebody says, dude, BJ, what if they did this? I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's try that. It's all about collaboration. And it was great. We had the best time, other than the fact that we got shut down with COVID and had to shut down for 6 weeks and then come back and finish it.
Oh my God. That is what it is. But when you're directing, are you able to like not watch the camera operating? Can you forget about it? Or are you still drawn to it?
I have to walk away from the camera operating. I won't do it. If there's something that's specific that I want to do, I'll basically be like, hey, look, this is what I want to end up doing. And there's a few times when things I've directed where I've jumped on and said, just when things weren't working out right, I'm like, I'll do this. But for the most part, I want everybody on set to do what they're there to do. And I trust, the people that are there. I want them to do the job. And honestly, it is hard because if I'm on the camera, I quit watching performance. I start watching framing. And I feel like I would step away and just let the guys do their thing, be confident who you hire, and watch the performance, watch the acting, and quit. It's hard to step away from the framing aspect to the performance aspect.
Yeah, that's why I ask. But you, so basically, when you're not on the camera, you can tune that out a little bit and just watch the performance.
Yeah, for the most part, and that's the thing. It's like that also boils down to trust the people you hire. My whole thing is if you surround yourself with the best possible people you can, it's less of a stressful situation than being like, well, who's this guy? And then you go and then you're like, oh shit, like this, oh no,
yeah, trust is everything. There's no question about it. Yeah.
Trust is everything, and making sure that I think that the better directors and people, or even camera or whatever, just surround yourself with the best people you can, because you're going to get a better product regardless. And everyone's there to do hard work and trust what they're going to do. That just makes everything better. Then makes my job easier because I can focus on what the actors are doing, and I'm a big believer in that.
What's been your biggest learning curve as a director?
Biggest learning curve as a director, I mean, honestly, going back to like focusing on performance and not the framing. Like, honestly, that was coming from camera world. That is probably one of the hardest things that I had to learn was like, the actors need my attention. The actors have questions. I need it, instead of being like, oh man, like, watch out the edges and, this kind of shit and headroom. I'm like, no, like if it's noticeable, I'll say something about it. But at the same time, it's, I think it's the hardest thing was actually, learning how to just make sure that I'm working with the actors and the performance, as well as still talking about what I want to do shot wise. That's a big important part of directing as well. You don't want it to become just this cookie cutter piece of shit. You want to have creativity to the whole situation too. But that also goes with having the right director of photography on board and making sure that they are there to deliver that. Sure.
Going back to camera operating, if someone came to you who had no idea about the film industry, no idea about your job, no idea about whatever, and you had to explain to them the job of the camera operator, what would you tell them?
Explain the job as the camera operator? No, and not knowing. So, wow, that's a tough one, because I always say, like, you got to know the politics of the set. You got to know. I think that knowing politics on a set is probably the most important lesson that you can start off with. Is like,
tell me,
really.
What do you mean? What do you mean specifically by explain that?
I think it's one of those things where you have to know, and every set's different. So, how's this director going to work? When I go into a set, I try to see how the DP works. And I want to mold myself into doing what he wants, how this director's works. And then when I see their ticks and what works and what doesn't, I try to get myself to a place where I know I'm going to work well with them, and I see what they respond positive to and negative to. Also being able to delegate around the grips and the electrics and everybody around, because they're all going to come to you with questions, because you're usually the one guy that's right there on set. I'm sure everybody talks about this, but everyone usually comes up to me and like, what, BJ, what's this? Or where's, what do you see over here? Or whatever. And you got to really have an answer for all that while you're trying to work out these shots and trying to make sure you're giving the director what he wants and knowing how he works and knowing how the DP works. Because, some DPs, they just want a light and they want you to work on the shot and they set it up. Some DPs want to actually set the whole shot. And if you don't hit that mark from A to B and it's not exactly what you did, you're going to get an earful. So it really is one of those things where politics on set, I think, is a huge thing you need to learn. And that's where it goes back into me starting off as a grip. I think that was instead of me jumping into like just all of a sudden being a camera guy, I took my time and learned and failed, and succeeded as a grip, and I really got to know my way around set and know what department does what and what who when to step in, when to step back. And I think that's the biggest lesson you can learn, is just really knowing how to kind of run a set, knowing really like how to delegate things, and because you're there as a ringleader a lot. No, so I think that's very important.
That's fantastic advice and a great answer to the question. Is there a genre that you haven't done yet that you want to do as a director or as a camera operator?
Oh man, I would love to do a Western.
Yeah.
I did this one really horrible one called Jonah Hex that I did. They did this movie Jonah Hex. It is this really bad Western, but they shot this thing in New Orleans, this Western in New Orleans. And I guess it was so gnarly and not like they didn't want to release in theaters that we ended up shooting 75% of this movie over with in 11 days.
Oh,
And
wait! They shot a
I still
Western in
didn't
New
save it.
Orleans. Like there aren't big vistas in New Orleans that I know of, anyway.
Dude, they built a town that burned down. There's like these
Oh my
sand
God.
dunes they shoot at. Like that's when
Oh,
New Orleans was like kind of the hot thing. Like I actually did a
yeah.
movie called Battle Los Angeles, and we shot Shreveport and Baton Rouge, Louisiana. And that's when all this was going down, these tax incentives. But going back to that, I mean, a Western, I would love to do a really good Western. Like
Yeah.
that would be really cool. And actually, it would be even more fun would be like a horror Western, like something like that would be pretty cool. Like, I don't know, action Western. I just would love to do something that's more like a cowboy movie. Cause I
Yep.
feel like I've done like the sci-fi, I've done the horror, I've done, the comedies and the dramas. I would love to get out there and just really do something that's pretty awesome and meaningful. Like
Yeah.
I love Westerns. I love Young Guns 1 and 2. I think Young Guns 2 is like one of the most fantastic movies ever. And Emilio Estevez playing. I want to do Young Guns 3 because I hear they're doing it, and I would kill to be on that.
There you go. Well, it's out there now. Hopefully, it'll happen. One of the things that you've sort of, it seems like you've touched on a couple of times here is your relationship with actors,
Yeah.
and can you just talk about that relationship with actors? Like, how do you go into a set where you don't know the actors, and how do you sort of figure out what they need and what you should be? Because I think there's something, you were saying every set you're adapting to the director and the DP, but I think you're also adapting the actors too, right?
100%.
Huge part of our job. Can you just talk about that a little bit in your experiences?
Well, now it's like if I have enough time and I like before a job and I know who the actors are going to be and I know somebody that's worked with an actor, I'll sometimes ask, hey, how's this person? Like, what do you think? I'll give somebody a call and get advice on them, and just see like what their tics are, if they're cool, if they're not cool. When you get on set, sometimes you don't have any information. And usually week one or even the day one, you kind of you'll see like, you'll know if they're approachable or if they kind of are standoffish or they just, not being jerk. Like some actors just don't want to like even chat. You know what I mean? You just kind of just go, okay. And you just step back and let them do their thing. And, some actors won't even hit their marks and I'll never forget doing a movie, where the director wouldn't let me talk to the actors. And if they didn't hit their marks, I couldn't say anything, or I couldn't tell them, hey, can you lean a little on your left when you hit the marks? I'm shooting like this over here. Like, there's certain things. It's one of those deals. You just got to know, like, and going back to the actor, the actress that like this one job I did, well, many jobs, but this one particular, he's like, you can't talk to my actors. I'm like, okay, great. And I told the DP, and the DP's like, oh my God,
Was it just a control issue, or was there some
major? He had a major.
Oh, okay.
The director had very much a control issue, and
That's a larger problem there. Yeah,
a big problem. But then you just kind of got to roll with it. But the funny thing is the actor came up to me later and goes, hey, if you need to give me a note when he's back his turn, just give me the note. And I'm like, I got you. So I would do that. I'd be like, I'd wait till the director kind of turned around. I'd be like, hey, blah, 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 do this. Okay.
That's unbelievable. I love the fact that like it's like we take something that can be really hard and we make it harder for no reason whatsoever. Good Lord.
Some people just have to do that. And I don't know why. I don't know if it's a control thing. I mean, look, that's the thing going back into what we do. You're going to work with all sorts of different personalities. The director could be a complete douchebag and that's their whole thing is they want to have control. And it's just like, it makes the job harder. But again, you have to adapt to it. If you don't adapt to it, you're going to be let go or you're not going to get along with them. And that's just the way it is, and as long as you're adaptable and you can kind of just get through it, you get through it.
Yeah. How do you, what's your relationship like with the AD on set?
It depends on who the AD is.
That's true. That's a big question, actually.
Yeah, I get along great with the ADs, like for the most part, it just depends on, it's personality. Like every ADs are different. Some are great. Some aren't as great. Some are just not good at their job, but good people. Some are great at their job and horrible people. Like it's just, it depends on who you're working with. But I try to get along, again, going back to trying to get along with everybody and working well with everybody. I try to make sure that I can at least try to make it manage. And I'm, again, going back to just have fun on set and try to make it a pleasant work experience. Again, it's observation. How do they work? Okay, I see how they're going to work. I'll work around that.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And so because you came out of dolly gripping, uh, what do you expect from your dolly grips, and what do you look for in a good dolly grip?
I look for a dolly grip that can actually make decisions on his own. It's not going to be like I have to hit this mark. If I don't go from like I feel like they need a monitor, and if they need to make an adjustment, they can make an adjustment. I feel like it's again make a good dolly grip and a good operator. It's about the storytelling. It's about the framing and knowing when to adjust, when not to adjust. If something's just not right, go ahead. Let's make the adjustment. Let's like do it. Don't wait for me to do this. And if just because you hit A to B doesn't mean the actor hit their marks. And if you need to adjust. The best thing about dolly grips is you don't have to tell them anything. There's so many good ones out there that I've worked with that when you get there you get comfortable because then you're going to be okay. It's the worst when you have a dolly grip that just doesn't pay attention and they're only focused on hitting their marks and the boom mark and all this other stuff. And in the end, it could mess up the whole thing. So it's, a good dolly grip pays attention, knows the story, knows framing, knows when to adjust, and you don't have to babysit them the whole time.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's all dead on. Well, listen, this has been a real pleasure. I other than what was it, Fastlane? Did you say it was Fastlane that we met?
Fastlane, we met on that. Yeah, man.
Other than Fastlane, I don't think we've ever really sat down and talked. So it's always nice to meet a kindred spirit and someone who's done such incredible work as you, and hear about it. Well, thank you. It's weird because I've told people this, like sometimes I feel guilty because I don't know anybody else who gets to sit down and talk like this with as many people as I've talked to. And I kind of love it because I learn stuff, but also it reinforces stuff. And it's fascinating to me. So I really appreciate you coming on the show. I'm going to leave you with the question I leave everybody with, and you can take us out with it.
Sure.
Advice for someone on getting into the business now, on how to succeed, and or something you've learned along the way that you wish you knew back in the day.
I think anyone that's trying to get into the business now, this is a different business now, and I think we're all starting to adapt to it. It's not how it was when I got in. It's very different. It's a scary time. But I think that anyone that really has the passion and the drive to want to get into this business, most important, get on sets, pay attention to what's going on around you, see what department you want to be in. It might not be camera. It might be something else. Really just focus on what's going on, how sets are run. Like you really just, I think just getting in there. And even if you don't know what you're doing, just like I said earlier, bullshit your way and try it, because the worst thing you can do is say, I didn't try it. I didn't go, I wish I would have done this, but I was too nervous to do it. Just get in there and make your dreams happen. I think we were all here as in this business to make dreams happen. We didn't go, I just want to get this 9-to-5er. This is a job. This is a dream job. This is a storytelling job. This is a job that whenever it's done, it's not like, I made copies and those are gone forever. No, our work stays forever. Our work is something you can always go back and see what you did. We have a solidified piece of history that's always there to go back and look. And I think that's really something amazing. And you should just be proud of what you do in the end. And I think just follow your heart. It's a hard business now. I hope everybody that gets into it succeeds, but don't give up.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.